Okay. So I'm Gabrielle. I am founder of Stand Up Sacramento County, and for some of you I've met before, for those of you that don't know, I became politically active around 2019 with a bill that personally affected my family. And so I had a crash course, vaccines, my son is vaccine injured. Stand on this stage, you're short. Oh my God. Can you see me now? Okay, so I became active in 2019. My son is vaccine injured, and SB 276 took me to the Capitol, and I became a witness and was a part of thousands of parents heading to the Capitol and being told by legislators, we see you, we hear you, we will vote this way, and that didn't happen. And I was kind of like, how often does this happen? Is this a fluke? Is this just pharma lobbying? And so I started paying more attention. And then we were in a hearing and we heard about a bill, AB 262. And we'd never heard of it before, it wasn't on our radar. And you're in the committee and you're listening, you're waiting for your bill to be called up. You're waiting to speak on yours or hear what's going on. And they're talking about this, and it's talking about activating public health almost as a fourth branch of government under a public health emergency. And I was like, that's weird. Why would you do that? You have unelecteds. And then they went into the definition of what a emergency was, and it was based on the CDC definition at the time of an outbreak of being 2 individuals. So they could declare an outbreak with 2 individuals. And we're chattering, we're a bunch of moms and dads trying to protect our kids, like, we should write that one down. We should pay attention to that. Probably in 2 to 5 years, that's gonna be a problem. And that was September of 2019. It was quickly signed into law. In November of 2019, people started getting sick. And that bill that quickly passed in the fall of 2019 was implemented in February, March of 2020 and was leveraged to help shut us down. And that to me was like, I need to pay 100% attention now to what is happening over here at the Capitol. And 2020 with COVID regulations, in the beginning it was like, okay, people are sick, they're staying home, they're trying to take care of themselves. Then it's like, hey, there's therapeutics and nobody's getting word of it. Everybody's afraid. And just watching what was happening, and so I started attending the Board of Supervisor meetings, and our business was personally affected. We almost went bankrupt. We're a self-employed family trying to stay afloat without PPE loans and all the things that had strings attached. And so we're just trying to stay afloat. So I became active at the Board of Supervisors of, hey, maybe they don't know that there's therapeutics. Hey, maybe they don't know that they're bankrupting the businesses with all of these. Hey, let's have some common sense. If you're scared and you want to wear a mask, or if you are immunocompromised and you want to wear a mask, do, but don't force it. So we started rallying people at the Board of Supervisors, and that is where Stand Up Sacramento County was born. There were 2 of us. She abandoned me and moved to Florida a year later. She gave up. So I am the founder of Stand Up Sac because she said, don't say we're co-founders because I left. But I am the co-founder of Stand Up Sac. So there were 2 of us that were going to the County Board of Supervisors through the summer of 2020 into the fall. And then they had the public health director before, Dr. Kassiri, and the county. They wanted to, they had 2 things that they were trying to push at that time. One was that if a business was caught with somebody coming in without a mask, Moto walks in without a mask, that business owner could be fined, misdemeanors could be leveraged, their business could be fined anywhere from $500 to $10,000. People could be arrested for them not making sure that she obeyed and wore it. And so we showed up, and so we started putting out a call to action of making sure the businesses knew. Like, do businesses know? If they're okay, it is their business, and they want to enforce people, that's their choice. But if they don't, this can be really expensive. They also, the public health director at that time, wanted to shut down Christmas lights over in the Fab 40s, and had all these regulations around that because people won't social distance when they're looking at Christmas lights. It got really weird. in 2020. And so we started putting out notice, and we're knocking on business doors, and there were other groups. We weren't the only ones that were letting the chambers of commerce know and just educating people on that. And so when we showed up for when those bills were supposed to be into place, there were about 50 people there. And it escalated from there. There were 2,000 emails. There were 2,000 emails. There was like 2 hours of phone calls, and those ordinances got pulled. So we didn't shut them down. They didn't vote no. They got pulled because they had so much public opposition to them. And so that is where we birthed. And so for 2021, we pivoted into the COVID vaccine because we were studying up on the science. I'm a bachelor's of animal science. I was originally pre-vet. I was trained in analyzing abstracts and research papers and statistical analysis. And so we're looking at PubMed and NIH, and we're like, we know of these therapeutics, so why are you doing this? And these mRNA trials that they did, all of the monkeys were dying. They had passive, it was passively being transferred from mouse to mouse. They're injecting this one, and then all 10 of these are carrying because of the mutations. And so we're like, do they not know this? And so we started educating and pivoting them to don't mandate the vaccine. And so 2021 was heavy on that. And that's where we kind of pivoted into some of the state of showing up with the legislators, because they had a gut and amend, and that is where you have a bill that goes through most of the cycle. And there was a bill that was on transportation for the toll bridges into the Bay Area, and it cleared the first year with the legislature. And we caught word from a tip inside the Capitol to our little grassroots groups that said, hey, read this one. And they had amended it heading into January for the second year of session, and it was now a mandate for any employee within the state, not an employee of the state, any employee with the state collecting a paycheck, that they would have to receive the COVID vaccine. And so we rallied everybody, and so we were heavy at the Capitol for that. And so Stand Up Sacramento County has had multiple pivots, right? It's like how we were founded, and as the further we get from COVID, it's kind of like the different directions we've pivoted. And right now, you touched on a little bit with your question about having to
sign a form.
Sign a form. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about the overall pattern in legislation the last few years. In 2023, the state legislature passed SB 107. I'm keeping my notes here because I don't want to muddle this. And the governor signed it, and that went into effect in January 2024. And it was spun as a trans sanctuary state. We see you, we acknowledge that you're in the wrong body, and we love you and we support you. It gives legal protections to anyone, not just a parent or guardian, who helps facilitate a child from anywhere in California, anywhere in the world, for receiving gender affirming care. And it's written so broadly that school teachers or counselors will have they do have legal immunity if they arrange for a child to obtain sterilizing drugs, puberty blockers. And if you're not aware, our brains don't fully develop until we're almost 25. You know, your bone density is very hormone dependent. And so when you're adding hormone therapy, and doctors used to be very careful adding any kind of hormone-based drug to help a child grow, their femur's not long enough or whatever, there's consequences that they'll go over of, hey, this can delay growth in these areas, this can affect this. Right now, that logic has kind of been thrown out the window, and giving puberty blockers to a child that prevents them from growing breasts because they feel like they're a man, or all of these things, it affects their cognitive development. It affects their bone density. I'm expecting a huge cascade of osteoporosis and all of these things in the next 10 to 20 years of an epidemic of, and it's really hormone blockers, but I digress. And it's also allowing genital mutilating surgery behind their parents' back. A 12-year-old child can consent to removing a body part.
Without notification.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say this was January 24?
January 2024. So it has been many years that a 12-year-old is expected to go see their doctor without their parents. And so they have their own email, and you can go behind, and they're doing it to, you know, make sure, are mom and dad beating you? Do you feel safe? Is there anything you want to talk about behind their back? Do you need birth control? All these things. These discussions are also, do you feel safe in your body, and it depends on your doctor, right? So having a good doctor is very important, but this bill passed, okay, January 2024. Now, some of the other bills that have passed along with it, okay, SB 145 allows convicted pedophiles to not register as sex offenders if a victim over the age of 14, and there was a 10-year or less age difference. So if your 15-year-old is seduced by a 24-year-old, you know, maybe a misdemeanor, but they don't have to register on Megan's Law. SB 132, if you have a family member or a woman that ends up in prison, allows men to transfer into women's prisons if they self-identify as a woman with no guardrails. This one has been horrific, the stories coming out of the prisons. There's a group, Freedom Angels, that is trying to get legislation passed or an amendment to reverse this. A lot of the men that are self-identifying as trans and moving into women's prisons are sex offenders, are in prison for rape, for domestic violence, for all these things. I think it was an 80% increase in birth control that was needed at these women's prisons. So I'll let you fill in the blanks.
Gabrielle,
yes,
is
ma'am.
the author of those, of that legislation?
SB 132, do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, so
I know that Wiener was
Tells
the
us the other
one
side.
with the, children for the,
SB 145 was Wiener. Yeah, I don't have SB 132 written down.
and Senator Pan was the first one, 276.
276.
I just thought if you had it's good for people to know who the authors are of these,
Some of them I do, 132 I don't.
okay?
AB 5, that one is not on this path, but that ended the livelihood of independent business owners and gig workers starting in January 2020. So as the economy was trying to recover, people's livelihoods were hit. AB 665 gave insurance,
Wait, you just said that too fast.
I'm sorry, AB 5.
The last sentence before that.
The gig, business owners and gig workers like DoorDash or Amazon delivery people, or it affected, there were cuts to how they can be paid and how they can receive, to where it affected their pockets. AB 665 was deemed as insurance equity, but allows the children's 12 and up to run away from the home and the state will house them with no parent consent. So if I do not call my son JT Sarah because he feels that he is a woman, and he in the school it is presented as he does not feel safe, he's not being protected, they can take him away, and they can house him, and I go to pick him up from school. And in the bill, we fought this one really hard because we said, it says that you just have to call. You have to make an effort to call. Well, who is holding you accountable to where maybe you called the wrong number, or you got voicemail, or the family's phone number changed? Like, if you're taking my kid, somebody should be showing up at my house to tell me you're taking my kid, right? So the normal standards of like CPS and the normal guardrails there are not applying with AB 665. SB 1665.
Okay.
Come on, I have that one somewhere on here.
That's the newest one that just went through, or that's 9, whatever.
That was like 2024.
Because I think she's thinking of the one where it.
495.
Huh?
495. I'll get there.
Yes.
Are you gonna get to
Better
that
get
one?
to there. Better
Oh,
get
good.
there.
So SB 107, we went over, that creates a sanctuary state for sterilization and mutilation. Prop 47, which we hear a lot in the news, reduce the criminal penalties on nonviolent drug and property crimes from felonies to misdemeanors.
And that was Proposition 36.
Proposition 47.
No, but what,
Well, Proposition.
Yes, it was Proposition 36, and then
Repealed it, yeah.
and then they did Proposition 47 to reduce.
No.
Get away.
Proposition 47 was realignment, that was before Proposition 36.
it's the last one we voted on that the governor's not funding for 36.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
It's fine, we'll take it.
Yes, it's not fun.
It's okay.
But Proposition 47 was Kamala
The
Harris.
was the original, and yes,
And
Prop
she
36.
referred to that as a safe proposition.
It's a safe proposition, and we all see what the damages that it's done.
Yeah.
And yes, we voted on Prop 36, and the governor can't find any money to fund it.
Right?
But he can be a
Well, he had to
sanctuary
spend
for everybody else.
250 million to,
On a special election.
on the special
He
election,
can be
yeah.
president.
AB 1078 removes local control of school boards and silences parents who object to inappropriate policies and sexual materials in their schools.
Wow.
So that's a piece. And so there were a few more, and then I'll shift the mood. AB 727, this one just went through. It was the Pupil and Student Safety Statewide Resources. For high school students, actually it's junior high and up, they have on their ID card emergency phone numbers, the National Suicide Hotline, different phone numbers if they need help. This bill pushed through that our LGBT community is not being given the resources they need, and added a phone line to where there could be a suicide hotline specific to them. And it sounds good, right? Like if I need somebody that understands who I am to help me if I'm in the bottoms and I'm trying to get help. However, the contact information goes to the Trevor Project. And this is one that we actually tested. I text them that I needed help and followed the prompts, because when social media is sharing like, oh, it takes you to their website and you're in all these grooming rooms, I'm like, am I? Like before I start putting that out, let me see. And so I text it and it sends me to a link and it goes to their website, and it's not just for suicide. And I was able to go into these forums of all these different ideological position things promoted, furries, not just identifying as a different gender or non-gender or non-binary, but age. That there's rooms for age, there's rooms for identifying as an animal, there's all of these different things. And in the hearings, they said, hey, a lot of the law enforcement showed up and said, hey, like we're having a hard time with all these foreign-based things to keep kids safe. And they said, no problem, all of the threads, because you can side message people, right? A lot of us don't let our kids have Snapchat or Instagram or all these things because we can't control who's talking to our kids. They can go on this Trevor Project link and they can be in these forums. And they said, no problem, it's monitored. It's monitored by AI. So it's not humans going in there. And that passed. So that will now be on their ID cards. The other one that just passed was SB 59, change of gender and sex identifier. And that is an amendment of the Health and Safety Code relating to vital records, that regardless of the petitioner's age, that their records will be locked up and confidential should they change their gender or sex identifier, and that includes within the school systems. It prohibits anyone other than the petitioner, so if I change my sex and gender, then only I can pull those confidential records. And they used statistics about harassment, violence, mental health crisis as a means to protect. Also, a couple of you mentioned AB 495, which I'm very happy with Pacific Justice Institute. They've been trying to get the word out. Yeah, you can applaud for that. And I'm happy about some of the churches. I know our church put it in their newsletter this week, making sure the parents knew about it. It went into effect, and it allows, let me read it, what PGI said. They said, while the law creates troubling gray areas, because parents are navigating uncertainties about who is allowed to remove a child from the school facilities, they have created a notice.
Sorry, a little louder.
Sure, so.
And a little slower.
A little slower, a little louder, I can do that. So AB 495, let me explain it rather than reading it. AB 495 was painted as if ICE comes to pick up parents and the children are left at school, we don't want this child to go into the CPS system. We want a friend or family member to come pick them up. Pulled at your heartstrings, right? It's like, of course we want those babies with their family if the parents are taken. So, unfortunately, it's up to 5 degrees of separation of who they're allowing. They're not checking your ID to make sure you are Uncle Tom or Uncle Bob or the boyfriend of the mom. They're not verifying any of these. It is a single page form that they can bring in as an authorization of removal. You sign it and you write down your driver's license number or your consular card. You don't have to be a citizen to take this child, and you can remove them from school, you can take them home, and you can even change their doctor. And so it removes the paper trail associated with the child. And it passed through under the guise of ICE raids, and we have to keep families together.
But everybody's child could be subject to this.
They use ICE to get it through, but that is not in the language of the bill. It is anybody from school.
So a pedophile, anybody can take that child.
Anybody, you have your hand up?
Well, I'm forgetting basically you don't have to, I'm forgetting the name now, you don't have to have it verified with signature.
Right, it's not even a notarized
Not notarized
signature.
signature, it's not notarized signatures either.
True, thank you,
So-
Gary.
So it's a caregiver affidavit, it's a single page form, and so PGI actually has instructions for the parents. They sent it out in an
Do the
email.
acronym, because we know.
Pacific Justice Institute.
Right.
So they created a document that parents can, a parental notice of non-authorization of removal. And they said, print this out, fill it out, take it to your school, reassert your authority of, these are the people that my kids can be released to under these situations. Clarify emergency exceptions, of course, if there's a fire or something, send it with the police, send it with the fire, whatever. It limits the removal of your child to who and when, and it blocks the misuse of the caregiver authorization.
What if a child would resist and say, this isn't my uncle, this isn't Uncle Tom or whatever?
So that's where it's, in my heart, overall, most school teachers I have met are loving and caring and would listen to that child. There's always an exception. And then it's, okay, I, as the teacher, or as the principal, or whoever is releasing that child, recognize this child is saying that, but the law says that they just fill out this form and they take it. So we are in we're in a gray zone right now, so that just went into effect, right? Because the burden on teachers right now
Talk about trafficking.
is insane. So what are we seeing? They're teaching our children that biology is a social construct. They're teaching them that their parents are closed-minded and they don't see you. I'm so sorry, I love you. I support you. I will call you a woman or non-binary or his, her, whatever. I don't even know the acronyms. Rather than coming along you inside you and saying, hey, puberty sucks. Our bodies change and it's confusing. And sometimes we wish we were a boy because it didn't come with all these bonuses, or we wish we were a girl because whatever. NIH has a study, and I think it's 80% as they go through puberty and they hit their 20s, they sort it out. And their brain recognizes their body, and maybe they're gay. They realize, hey, I'm gay. But they're not putting hormones in, and they're not cutting off body parts, and they're not being enabled by the adults that are supposed to keep them safe and help them through these things, and these things are not reversible. And so we are encouraging lying to protect somebody else's feelings. You must sign this and call him Zer, or you will be fired. And so it's defying common sense, rather than saying, I understand that you do not identify as, it's against my religious beliefs. God created man and woman. I can't call you that. Can I call you just by your name, Sarah? I don't know. Like, there's ways to say, I love you. You are a human being. How can I be your friend? I can't go against my own conscience. And unfortunately, teachers are being forced. They're in the front line of this, along with social workers and so many others. Boundary setting has been absolutely demonized. What boundaries? I mean, yeah, we all see it. They mock faith, they mock morals, and right now, the current narrative with the media that is distracting is Muslims, 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 Muslims. That is the current distraction from We are allowing state-sanctioned pedophilia, we are allowing state-sanctioned kidnapping, we are allowing the sexualization of your children. Galt Unified School District has litter boxes in a couple classrooms, that's totally normal, right? Kids go through stages. My 8-year-old still loves to dress up as a cat and crawl around and meow because she's role-playing. And today she's a cat and tomorrow she's Spider-Man and I don't know, right? It's a normal, healthy, they're acting things out, they're exploring their world. She does not think she's a cat, and there is no way I'm gonna let her use a litter box, but unfortunately, the teachers in the classrooms are having to put up with
Are
this.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
What a joke.
No, I know, Lodi is heavy,
My daughter's at Churchill, and there are groups of furries,
yes.
and that is 100% happening right here in our neighborhood at our middle schools. And you can't do anything to those students that identify as furries or whatever.
They are
Or
a
you,
protected
like,
class.
my daughter's friends have gotten in trouble because they've taken their phones, because it's weird. They're middle schoolers, like, I'm gonna take a picture of this, and you get in trouble. Because you're harassing, you're bullying, if you're looking at the furries. They have their own spaces designated, it's crazy.
What's a furry?
I'm bad at that.
It is that's good. I had to Google
Great
it
question.
2 years ago. It is a human being that believes that they were born in the wrong body and they're actually a cat, dog, deer, rabbit.
Bear.
And they will, sometimes, they will will not speak, they'll meow. Sometimes they'll come in a Halloween costume, but it's their cat skin. The children in Galt Unified that use litter boxes, they will not use a bathroom because they are a cat and they
Are
would
you
definitely.
kidding?
No, they actively, they're not for show litter boxes.
Wow.
Those are their toilets.
Oh my God.
And so it is mental illness that is not being treated as mental illness and it's being celebrated as the norm, and the 1%, the 99% must cater
The
to
1%.
the one. Yes.
So at what point do they bring public health into it?
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
No, seriously, I mean, you're
What
gonna
was the
have,
question? I couldn't
She
hear.
said, at what point do they bring public health into this?
Oh,
Yeah, if they're using a litter box, I mean,
Wasn't
they use
it-
pretty litter so they can tell if they have a kidney problem. you know?
I want pink sparkly because I'm a unicorn cat. Right?
I mean, this is all about bacteria, this is serious.
As
far
well,
as health issue.
but you.
Yes.
It's more about,
behind it.
it's more about supporting mental.
So in tracking it, right, because with Stand Up Set County, there was a point where we sat down and we're like, I don't wanna touch this anymore, like, this is insane. But the thing is, they're passing it. They're passing it, and half of the parents whose kids are in school are not aware of what's going on. Because the kids are taught that this is normal. They're taught that this is normal, right? So in Ireland, a teacher in the last week, I think it's Ariel Burke, was just sentenced in life in prison for transphobia. A teacher said, I'm not gonna do this, was just sentenced to life in prison for transphobia. This is not a California problem. This is not a Sacramento problem. This is a worldwide agenda. And the reason that we stay engaged is, why would they do this?
Yeah, what's their agenda?
What is the agenda?
Illuminati.
Depopulation.
Depopulation.
What did you say, Ron?
Depopulation.
Oh, yeah.
Depopulation.
Global terrorism.
So if we can't inject them with this and wipe them out, and Bill Gates said it, there's a TED Talk where he said the goal is net zero. And if you have any kind of science knowledge or thought, it's like net zero carb emissions. I emit carb. I emit, when I exhale, we're carbon beings, right?
Eliminate human beings.
And then there's somebody local who is considering running for office who said, we have about 50 years left and we need to reduce our emissions, reduce the population, get them over to electric vehicles, climate change this, climate change that. If you take a whole generation and you teach them that their parents don't know anything, if you teach them that there is no God, there's no boy, there's no girl, if there's no God, there's no morals, And my Muslim neighbors pulled their kids from school and they now homeschool. So this is not a Christian issue. This is a moral foundational issue. If you teach them that there's no right and wrong, that it's a social construct, and it goes based on your emotions and your feelings, and you wiggle it in ever so subtly, what choices is that generation gonna make? How easy are they gonna be able to control in about 10 to 20 years? And so they're being taught that it is up to them to save the world. So it's a scary thought. And yes, the overarching agenda seems
So-
to go into
And
depopulation.
carry this into the colleges for these, what do you call them, theories?
Radicalizing. And it's not in, right, there are classrooms that are like safe spaces. There are teachers that are pushing back on it. I've got a few at my church that are like every day, like, okay, I'm willing myself to go to school because I love these children and I'm the buffer. They're the shield. But they're getting beat down by the administrations, they're getting beat down by what's coming down from from federal to state to school board and trickling down into the local. So our children are our battleground, which is why we've stayed engaged. And so yeah, we've pivoted a lot from COVID, right? We've pivoted a lot from my son's vaccine injury on. But that's Stand Up Sacramento County, and that is what we're seeing. And now that I have actively depressed you, what we're looking at, and it's kind of, and I think we're all asking ourselves, because if you're here, you're somebody that's paying attention. If you're here, you're probably part of the 1% that's like, what can I do? Who can I talk to? What can I share? And the hope is that there are areas pushing back. Missouri has a Senate bill on the floor, I think it's 1085. And their bill is to prohibit public school staff from encouraging students in their sexual transition to being perceived as a member of the opposite biological sex. Hey, I recognize that you believe that you're a boy. Let's wait until you're in your 20s and let's wait until you're an adult. And if you still feel that way, there's help for you, right? Maybe that's legitimate. I see you, but let's get through the day, let's get through, high school's hard, right? Like, we have no sleep, we're all the peer pressure. So some states are trying to push legislation to push back. We're not, but some are. And so that's the overarching big picture of what we're seeing with the agenda, is that there's a war on our children. And we are the only thing to step in. Now, when you have a supermajority that is not Democrat, they are progressives and socialists in Democrat clothes. There are a few actual Democrats there, and that are starting. They've created their own little like moderate caucus, and they are trying. Okay, so there's been shifts in the last 2 years, and I really respect. And last year, one of the tips on a bill came out of one of those offices, and they're like, hey, look at this. And then when you walk down the hallway, the eyes are down like they've never met you a day in their life. They don't know who you are. But there is discomfort there. Unfortunately, when people are continuing to vote down the line of D, R, like it's a gang war, we're not gonna get anywhere. And the Republicans are not always appreciative of me, because I'm like, hey, why didn't you stand up and say something on the floor about this bill? We've been calling you. We've been calling you. We've been sending letters. Our position letters are in. You can't say that you weren't notified of this bill. I didn't hear you stand up and say anything. Oh, they ran the mic and they silenced us. And I applaud Asai, who has now been promoted as off to other things. How many times did they turn off his mic in the last year? Because he's like, no, I'm gonna say something about this. He was
Who
great.
was that? Hang it
Bill
up.
Asai.
Bill Asai.
Oh, Bill Asai, yeah,
Yeah.
we no longer have him in the,
No,
Not the
Trump
legislature.
appointed him as,
yeah.
So we're moving into a period of, we're looking at candidates for 2026. We are looking at Proposition 50 that just failed. And I'm under the firm belief that if you manipulate voters for so long and you steal votes in the machines, and you get people to where they're so used to the fraud that at some point they're disenfranchised and they don't show up to vote, and you no longer need to commit fraud. I think we're there. with Proposition 50, a lot of people didn't show up to vote.
That's what they say.
Very good.
So I look at it and I say, we're burnt out, because this is a hot mess. There's about 4,000 bills that go through in a cycle. We're not gonna catch them all. The legislators, they don't know about half of them until they go on the floor to vote for them, unless the people call in. And so that's why the grassroots kind of watchdog groups, we're all connected, like all up and down the state. We have each other's phone numbers and emails, like, hey, did you hear about this one? Kind of our own little network to try and get through to each other. But we're throwing out speed bumps. We've gotten a few bills stopped. We've gotten a few bills that we've supported through. But the damage is so intense for our children, and it's happening so fast that there are times where it's like, are we making any headway at all?
And are you still working with Greg Bird?
We
California
communicate,
Family-
we're not working directly together, but we communicate.
Okay.
Yeah, not him, but the office.
California Family Council.
California Family Council. So all of those different groups pay attention. So it's kind of like, what do we do, right? So how do we hold back on that? And I was kind of prepping for this, and coming to speak in the middle of a cycle when there's something actively happening is really easy. In December, when they're all at home and they're prepping for the holidays and there's not really anything to go with the Capitol, I was like, what am I gonna focus on tonight? I was kind of praying about it. I'm like, what's the point? And it came along to where we spend so much time and energy helping get someone elected. I'm gonna put your lawn sign in my yard. I'm gonna come to your dinner. I can't make phone calls, but I'm gonna pay $200. I'm gonna come to your dinner and help fund your campaign. I'm gonna do X, Y, Z. I'm gonna tell my friend. But once they're in office, it's like, okay, I did my job. Now they're gonna represent me. But when they're just San Juan Unified, not your area, but San Juan as a whole, that's 40,000 students. So times 2 for the parents, and you've got at least 80 to 100,000 there that are being represented. You're not speaking to all of them. There's not enough hours in the day. Their duty, our duty, is to say, hey, I've been watching this bill, I want you to vote no. Hey, I've been watching this bill, I want you to vote yes. Or hey, how can I support this? Our duty is to stay engaged for the 2 to 4 year cycle. Otherwise, we're just throwing money at a candidate who's being lobbied so hard by every organization under the sun. If you've ever been on O Street at their current offices, you walk in and you could look at the door, and I know immediately how they're voting because there's signs of all the different lobbying groups and the organizations that they support to support them. I can tell before I even walk in the door how I need to carry myself, how I need to intro. Hey, they're not gonna let me in, so let me send the kids in first. My kids are great icebreakers. They just saunter in. They usually have a coloring book or some water or something, and then I come in, right? So you can tell, and so we're not gonna outmoney them. But it takes people saying, I care enough that I'm gonna stay engaged, and I'm helping this person get elected, and I'm gonna support them by being their cheerleader the whole 2 to 4 years they're in office. And then if they're voting a different way, and say, hey, what happened here? And I'm gonna tell you that there's one Republican in this area, he doesn't represent Sacramento, he's in a surrounding area, that normally we align, and we normally love his bills.
Is that Tanya Glenn?
I'm not gonna name him.
Okay.
But it's a him. I know, you're fishing. You're fishing. He put a bill through that was a Band-Aid. And it was a Band-Aid that would have applied enough red tape that it was not worth passing. And it was an election year. And we're like, okay, we see, he's smiling, he knows. We see what you're doing, and we think it's a really good idea, and we are appreciative, but you left this gaping hole, which is a door, for it to not work and to not be viable. And we want an amendment to close that door. And they weren't listening, they weren't calling, they weren't responding to us. And so I put out a call to action. I was getting in the shower, so I'd only posted it on our Telegram, a call to action to call their office and say, we oppose this bill unless it's amended. I got to work, I'd forgotten about it, I hadn't posted on Instagram, I hadn't sent out an email blast, and I got a phone call on my cell phone, I'm like, oh, that's a Capitol number. So I answer, and it was their legislative director. What did you do? I'm like, what do you mean, what did I do? And they're like, oh, you put, like, people keep calling, and like, we oppose this bill, and da-da-da. And I was like, oh, that's right, I did that on my way out the door. And I said, we've been wanting this amendment, and you guys aren't talking, so we oppose the bill. And long story short, we were in the office the next day with our amendment language to sit down and talk with chief of staff, it was somebody, I don't know. We were sitting down and talking, and I said, out of curiosity, how many people called you? It was 30 people. 30 people called, and it caused enough disruption in the office for them to call me and say, what's that amendment? Now, they did not
Bravo.
They did not do the amendment,
That's bravo.
right? And so we didn't support the bill. And the conversation was, you're supposed to be on our side. Don't you work with? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, we're friendly with them and we do this and that, but we work on our side. Like, me, myself, and I might have an R behind my name, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna approve what you do just because you do.
That could be representative, nothing else but that.
Whereas Stand Up Sac County is a completely nonpartisan group. We've got everybody under the sun that pays attention on that. But that is the kind of, it doesn't take 5,000 phone calls or emails to open up the door of the conversation. They're used to being voted in and being left alone. 30 phone calls got us in the office.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think phone calls are more effective than emails?
Yes, because it's annoying.
And what was the question?
Do you think phone calls are more
Do you think
effective?
phone calls are more effective than emails?
Oh, I think so too, because it keeps them from doing their work. I love the telephone calls. We got 400 when they wanted to put sidewalks in our neighborhood. I shut down the county, they don't like me.
So they're required to log, to where you call, and they have to put it in their system. One person asked for us to look at this bill, no. One person asked us to vote yes. And what they tell you, and so some of the staffers within the offices have said, if it gets 10 to 15 requests for us to look at something, we'll pull it up. Otherwise, they don't usually hear the bill unless it comes into the committee they sit on, or until it goes on the floor to clear the house. So they have no idea, because 4,000 bills, even with a staff of 6, that's virtually impossible unless there's something that team is passionate about and they're running keywords, which is what we do. At the beginning of January into February, we're pulling keywords to look for things that we're paying attention to. And that trickles down no matter what level of government. The county board of supervisors, I'm scanning the agenda. The school boards, I'm scanning the agenda, right? But when you're calling, they're documenting, they have a little Excel spreadsheet that generates. And the emails get logged. We have found that the best way to put it in writing is to send the bill position letter into the portal, because every legislator can pull it down. And when their teams are putting together their bill analysis to take and present to the entire assembly or Italian Senate, every now and then we'll find pieces of our letters within there as opposition or support. So they're pulling it. And we have received a phone call. One of Shannon Grove's office reached out to us on, she's reached out twice she was trying to pass the school choice resolutions. And we got an email that said, hey, we see that you support these types of bills. We need help. Can you send a letter in? Yes, sir.
That was passed, forgetting the bill, the number, where it was sold is if ICE,
495.
495, was stand-up's the only opposition letter in the whole portal on that one? Or the first one?
Ours was the first or second one on AB 495. And part of that is because we're right here in Sacramento, so we're hearing it first, right? Versus the groups up and down the state. And so it's like a trickle effect. And that one was a gut amend. So that one, they modified an existing bill that had cleared multiple committees and cranked it in at the end. So it was summer. That bill made it all the way through until July And then the language changed. I'm like, wait a minute, because we'll randomly pull keywords even into the summer because we've gotten used to Gutna meds. It's real sneaky. They like to suspend the Constitution quite a bit.
Quite a bit,
Quite
I
a
think
bit.
they do it all the time.
So that's kind of like the viewpoint for me, because I'm constantly asking myself, like, dude, what is the point? Like, can we slow this down? I'm just gonna pull my kids out and homeschool, and I already do homeschool. That choice was taken away for me in SB 276, and I'm glad I homeschool.
Yeah.
But not everybody can homeschool.
That's right, it's not right for everybody.
Not everybody can, and there's so many options in place, but there's always an exception to the norm, or these kids with IEPs that they need specialty resources, and the answer isn't to constantly walk away from the problem, because it just gets bigger. And so that is what we've observed, is that it's not enough to say, I believe in Jesus, and this is the way I'm gonna rear up my children, this is the foundation, because they're in the world. And my kids, I think one of them was 5, and they're like, what's a them? Right? They're seeing it, and they saw it on Transformers. So it's not just enough to keep them out of school. I'm screening every TV or movie that gets in their face. They go to the library and they put 20 books in front of me, and I'm going through every single book. What is the content? Even if it's a book that I normally say yes to by the author, I'm checking it if it's not a classic, because they have, I think this generation calls it brain rot. It's what we called comics. They call it brain rot. It is brain rot. It was good old fashioned comic books or whatever. They get like a certain amount of that. They have their junk food reading, and then they have their like, hey, let's build your brain reading. But I have to screen everything. And that's the place that we're at. So the challenge for everybody in the room is, in this cycle where candidates are running, is don't be afraid to ask. You know, like he did, don't be afraid to ask that question. And he gave a very honest answer. He's like, I'm not sure of all the stipulations around that. That's not my area of expertise. And he's probably gonna do that research. But once people are in office, hold them accountable. And don't simply go, when they run to, again, we've got all these candidates that are incumbents that are running again. Take a look. Did they vote constitutionally? Did they, right? Did they follow through on their promises? Did they tell you, I'm not gonna support this, and then they did? Did you donate money to help them get into office, and then they never picked up the phone once they were in, right? So don't just support them because they have the letter behind their name that aligns with you, because they may not align with you. And I think we've gotten so far away from representative government, and government is eating itself and has turned into this big bloated beast. And so, in summary, I guess I will say, we'll be scrubbing bills in January to see what's going on. Yes, do you have a question?
I just want you to tell us your favorite success story.
Favorite success story? It really was that ordinance being shut down with the county board of supervisors.
Which ordinance was that?
I don't remember the number
No,
anymore.
it's okay, just what was the content?
It was the ordinance to where if somebody was caught in a business without a mask, that the business could be cited, fined, misdemeanors.
It's a great win.
3 of us had shown up at the county board of supervisors to oppose the bill. And one of us, me, can't wear a mask for medical reasons. And the other 2 were like, I'm gonna breathe, thank you very much. And so we came in, and they wouldn't let us in chambers because nobody was allowed in chambers. And we said, okay, well, can we have a mic in the side room to weigh in on public comment? No, you need to leave, you don't have a mask. And so I pulled out their public health order, and I said, right here it says, if you have a medical condition, per Dr. Kasiri, stamped by the county, I can be in here. Well, the law enforcement was called on us. And 3 officers came in. It was about 20-30 minutes, and there were more people coming. There was a mom with her stroller, there was somebody else, and they were coming to join us against this ordinance. And, long story short, they never even asked for my ID. It was like, you need to leave, and we're like, is this not a public space? Does this not apply? And then they go out and they talk to the building manager, and then they come back in, we need you to leave. Am I being trespassed? Do I have to leave? You know, it's kind of, and then they go out and they come back in, and so we stayed. And at that time, the BLM riots were real heavy, and they were talking about passing, was it a sanctuary county for, I forget what it was called, do you remember? It was something to support, like, we see you and we back you, and I could see the law enforcement, you know, they're kind of looking and they're turning their heads. I said, have you been home? Because all of my friends in law enforcement have been pulling 10 to 12 hour shifts. They've been out on the streets. And so we started talking with them a little bit, and you know, they don't know us, they're not speaking very freely, but they keep listening. You can see they're listening to what's being discussed. And then they left. And then we found out that in all that chaos, the ordinance had been pulled. It was gonna be heard in 2 weeks. But because I didn't wear a mask, I posted something on Facebook. A radio host heard it, brought me on his show, and then we had 50 plus people there, plus all of the emails and the phone calls. It created a publicity stream. And then all of those people were there for when we came back. And some of the business owners, I'd say 75% of the people that were there, I didn't know. And some of the business owners were very angry, and they wanted in that room, and they started shaking the doors. And so myself and a couple members of our team were kind of backing up like, this isn't what we signed up for. And so I'm kind of standing next to the same building manager, like, I don't know what's happening. And so law enforcement showed back up, and I ended up helping mediate. There was one woman that was really mad and wanted, but I'm staying, and I said, well, are you prepared to be arrested today? Because the sheriff's coming in, and he said, I have 2 minutes to get you out. I said, do you want to give me your husband's phone number? Do you want to give me this? And she ended up walking out behind me. And the media had showed up, and we ended up doing interviews, and it got the word out. So it turned into one of those snowball effects of like the bad circumstances turned into blessings. And we had gathered in a circle of prayer because they had taken a recess for safety. Right, because the doors are being banged. You know, they don't know. I didn't know. I'm like, do they mean them harm? Like, what's happening? I didn't know. We'd taken, and one of the guys that was taking pictures, one of the officers that was there, one of the 3 that was there 2 weeks before, was on his knees behind us in prayer as we were rounding up in prayer. And it was just a reminder of we are all under the same regulations and umbrellas and laws, and we're all being affected by it, and we're all being pitted against each other. And so that, to me, was kind of, it showed me only 1% of the county showed up against this bill, and we got that ordinance squashed. It doesn't take a lot of people. 2, that people will show up to back each other, you know, and people will tend to come in pairs. They're afraid to go by themselves, but they will grab onto your energy and they will go. And 3, it was a reminder that the guys that were maybe hassling me 2 weeks before were just as affected as we were. And people are having to make choices. And maybe I won't always agree with the choice they're making for their career, but they have to make choices. And so it was an eye-opener for me. There's been more wins, but that one stands out. Yes?
I was there at that event that day, and I don't know if you recall, but yes, like you said, they weren't letting any of us in to the chambers there for, you know, but who was there was Richard Pan.
That was what set them off. Thank you, I forgot that. Richard Pan was there supporting the ordinance.
He was supporting the ordinance, and he was gonna be allowed to speak on it, to present. And he was the only individual in there except for somebody else who was with him. But I don't know if you recall that. And then as so to speak, your group came in, they saw him there, and he was just, they immediately went to him and were torturing him. But yeah, and then a lot of
Don't you think he deserved it?
supervisors. Well, I'm not the judge about that, but, oh, yes.
So that's a good point, because we can be in the same room and miss, yeah.
And then that chamber is large enough it could have accommodated this ridiculous separation.
Yeah, we could have been social
We
distancing
could
there.
have all fit in that room, and they weren't allowing that.
Well, we had tried to negotiate, just bring a mic right here, let us have the public
Yeah.
comment. So we had to call from our cell phones from the lobby. But so for those that don't know, former Senator Richard Pan was behind the bill. There's a couple bills. My kids cannot attend school due with vaccine injury. Those were bills that he authored or co-authored. He was backing the ordinance
Yeah.
for the county. He also, there were two bills that we fought. He was trying to make it so that the sheriffs could be leveraged by public health to enforce mandates. That got shut down with the legislature. It didn't go through. I forget the other one. There's been a lot of extreme legislation coming through him, and he is running for Congress, Congressional District 6.
Isn't he the author? They go against Kylie?
He is the author.
We don't know what Kylie's running, which area
I'm-
Kylie's in yet.
I don't know who's running against who. I'm still trying to figure out the borders with 50 passing. I feel like it
Kylie
was
has
Chris
not made a
Fish.
decision about whether he's running, but didn't Vera move to
Well,
3?
I got it.
Yes, he
They
did.
saying it was-
Vera moved to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pardon me? No, I'm talking about Kylie.
Kylie's still not said where area.
So are there any
I
other
think he
questions?
was going to be running for.
He didn't say that. He did not say that.
Who was on the board of supervisors at that time? It was Sue Frost, Phil Cerna, Kennedy, Natoli, and
Oh, what year is that?
that was 2020, and it was still, Sue, no, what was her name? Suzanne, Sue, not Sue Frost, the
I
other
know what you
woman.
mean.
My mind's blinking.
And I can see her.
Before Desmond replaced
Rich
her.
Desmond was not sure.
No,
I feel like she was also Sue or Susan, but, the ones there now, Kennedy and Cerna,
to McEwen.
were the two there now, were there then.
What supervisor was married to McEwen?
I don't know,
Oh, geez.
I'm not sure, yeah.
I can see her.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I got a point, I just wanted to say, related to this, is the grooming aspect.
Yes.
I was informed that 7 and 8-year-olds, they were, propagandizing this transgender thesis. And, they're actually doing it with 3-year-olds. I saw it on a video report. Teachers have a 3-year-old, they say, children, you don't have to be a boy, you could be a girl. Now, this is psychological warfare. You don't have any defenses as a 3-year-old. You can be talked into whatever. And these are adults grooming these kids to be
Right.
moronic. This is psychological abuse.
We went to the Elk Grove Unified School District, what year was that? When everything runs together.
It was probably it was either
It was
late 2022 or early 2022 or 23.
Yeah, it was before Heidi was elected. So they were reading a book, to the school district saying, this is what's in our kids' school libraries and in some of the classrooms being read to them. The book was called Identical, okay? And it basically went into, a 14-year-old boy and then a girl about child rape and touching and sometimes enjoying it and sometimes being scared. And I literally was like plugging my ears.
Yeah.
Cause
It's offensive to us as adults.
It's offensive to us.
14-year-olds gotta hear that.
And it's offensive to us and adults and children going through puberty and kind of slightly like excited by those concepts. It's planting seeds and normalizing.
No, this is just.
Let her finish.
Also,
I understand. So they were reading that into the school board and the school
Yeah,
board
that's true.
let it go. And they said that this comes down from the state, we have to allow it.
No.
Which
Yeah.
is, they can push back, other school boards have.
Also-
The
Yes.
COLA money has
Also,
strings
I
attached
wanna
for
make a
those
point,
folks.
this thing
Yes.
about Richard Pan, I believe information is power.
Uh-huh.
There was a comprehensive report out of Japan that 600,000 people died from the COVID vaccine in Japan. That's probably millions worldwide. So you can hang that around his neck during the election, you can have a free-for-all election. There's just hey, you stand by this, he was pushing the backs and the mandates and whatnot. And, does he still wear his white coat wherever he goes, so to show everybody he's a doctor?
So you make a good point, because we saved video footage of us educating,
Yeah,
because
it's
in the
in-
beginning, it's like, maybe they're naive.
Yeah,
And-
just put it in a nutshell, you know, the vaccine, there was a report out of Japan, the news media is not gonna advertise it. 600,000 people died from the vaccine, not the COVID, virus. And then when you got the FDA and the CDC for, putting out disinformation, and they were accusing and projecting to everybody else, oh, that's disinformation, we gotta squelch that, we gotta censor, we've got people advocating censorship. You know, I never would have thunk it.
I agree. And there's,
10 years ago, that anybody in the academic world would be promoting censorship.
oh, that was one of his other bills.
I mean,
Yes.
I've gone through high school, college and whatnot, and all these venues, there was never advocated in the academic world until, well, I guess it's for the last 10 years. He's
So we're seeing with, Department of Health and Human Services, we're seeing with, CDC, we're seeing a walk back. Now, the peer-reviewed studies have been there before the FDA approval came in. They've been there, and then there's all the Pfizer documents that they brought forward. The information was there before, and they gaslit and they demonized, and people were hurt. We're seeing the same thing, you reminded me, I saw it yesterday, that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released peer-reviewed report discrediting the scientific basis for pediatric sex-rejecting procedures. So they are now coming around and saying, hey, that hormone therapy and what you're doing is dangerous, which is what we had been saying 2-3 years ago to get it to stop. And so hospitals like Sutter are now walking back their programs.
Yeah, but always
So we're-
beware, these folks, it looks like they're retreating a little bit, but they always have it on the back burner. All this legislation and these ideas, you know, gun control and vaccines and whatnot.
I view it as a lizard. You know, how many of us have ever caught a lizard? A lizard that will drop its tail to save its life, and then will regrow it later.
Yeah.
So these studies coming out, my brain says, yes!
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with it? And is it gonna stick?
Mhm.
Right? So I don't disagree with you. Yes.
I just want to make a point from something that you said earlier, and it's going to sound negative, but I mean it as a compliment. You said there were only 30 people or so that called in, you know, barely 1% of the constituency. Well, in reality, it was probably 1/1000th of 1% of the constituency. And so it's never really our ability, it's our availability. And if we will take a stand, you know, we have the power of righteousness, you know, the Lord's behind us in these things, and He blows them away, but He waits for one of us to stand up and do the thing, you know, so don't ever get discouraged by your small numbers, because they have an effect. And I say that as a former lobbyist, so I know the power
So
of
you know the
people.
routine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanna add, may I address you first?
Yep, go ahead.
I just wanna add something to what she's saying. I've been in the volunteer work of reading school board agendas and reading county board of supervisors agendas, looking for things, keywords, like she said. They're very crafty, you guys, when you read these agendas. I mean, I've looked at the San Juan Unified School Board agenda, and I found a book in an attachment on the agenda. So if you don't go through the attachments and read like a 40-page presentation that targets the book that's teaching something sexually to your children under whatever classroom it was getting approved in. So my point is that we all have lives, right? We all can't look at these agendas and deep dive into them. I mean, I was only tracking 6 school boards, and it was taking all of my time to find these things. And all somebody like Gabby in the group that she's got, they're doing all that for us. All we have to do is pick up the phone when they reach out to us and follow through. I cannot tell you, in the world of volunteerism and this kind of thing, what a great resource that is. They're doing all the legwork and handing us even the words to say when we make the phone call. The only thing we have to do is pick up the phone and make that call. And it's just really important to get behind people like, that are doing this for us.
Anything else? Go sit down.
Oh, it is a lot of work. Thank you.
It is a
It is a lot of
Very
work.
much.
And right now, the only place you're gonna find us is on Telegram, because they deplatformed, my Instagrams again. So we're in a constant cycle of trying to reestablish connections.
What about X? What about X?
I don't know how to use X.
It's easy.
Is it easy? I'm like, there's a point where you get bogged down with all the social media. Like the other day, I was like, I don't want this phone anymore, I want a landline. And I sound, I don't know how old I sound, but I'm just like, take it away, make it stop buzzing. But, and part of it was the frustration of, I got deplatformed again. And you know what I posted? I posted no 150.
Platform, that's the key.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, so right now, the only thing active is Telegram, and then when we are in active session, we'll send out an email. Usually we'll send out 1 or 2 emails, and if it doesn't go to spam, you'll see it, but, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.